One of my new favorite things I do at the moment is watch these short videos of this young gentleman, very enthusiastic, spunky young gentleman, uh, interviewing very rich people. He calls them billionaires, and I guess some of them probably are. And what I find so interesting about it is, I guess it it largely reinforces, validates an opinion that I already had, that these very rich people are not exactly intelligent, and that they're kind of pretty vacuous individuals ultimately. They have a very basic and primitive, materialistic outlook, experience on life. And it's demonstrated to me by just the incredibly trite things that they say when they're asked for advice that they could give to other people that want to become rich, or just like hearing how they in their own minds conceptualize like how they got to the point that they're in, and how they view life now. And interestingly, although perhaps not so surprisingly, pretty much all of them, when asked about it, say that they are believers in God. They have a very close relationship with Jesus Christ. And I just find that kind of quite abhorrent, actually, because they make to credit their success to God, to their relationship with Jesus, and it's like the fucking how fucking audacious, or just how fucking delusional a person they are, right, to say such a thing. Because how many very, very impoverished people there are around the world who also have a belief in God and a relationship with Jesus Christ. I would say it's probably in the millions, right? And yet their situation is as it is. For some reason, God, Jesus, decided to single out these particular people because I guess they're superior in some way, or I don't know, they were more deserving. No, I don't think so. But yeah, it's sort of gross to see, and it reveals the level of stupidity and ignorance of these people. Ultimately, it demonstrates that the ability to become rich is not entirely predicated on one's intellectual merits, whatsoever intellectual merits they might possess. Although, of course, it does play into it. But I think, and I've heard it theorized before, that that such people, they are, in fact, if you would make to measure their intelligence on an IQ test. And I know there's problems with IQ tests and such, but nonetheless, they do reveal a certain kind of cognitive ability. They are a pretty reliable way to measure such. They would be, these people, of a slightly above average, but slightly above average IQ, but that's it. They're not anything special. And their advantage comes in precisely the fact that they are in this slightly above, but not incredibly intelligent, because actually what we see is in relation to IQ results, people with very high intelligence, it's often correlated with like poverty. Perfect example, like someone like Nikola Tesla, right? Lived most of his life in poverty, ended it in poverty, but undoubtedly a genius with incredibly high IQ. So the advantage that these sort of middling people, these billionaires have, is that they are, and this is such a great quote. I think about this all the time. I had it from some podcast a long time ago. Supposedly it's credited to some football coach, and this football coach, they were interviewed after that their team had won another game. I believe his team was being very successful, and the interviewer pressed the coach and they said, "Come on, tell us what's your secret? How are you bringing this team to such a consistent victories?" And he said, "The key is to being smarter than your opponent, but not so smart that you see how little all of this matters." And that for me, that sums it up. This whole issue of the whole topic of billionaires, what makes someone able to be a billionaire. They're just smarter than the greater majority of people, enough so that they can see things that those people can't exactly see. They can leverage certain things. Also, I would say a certain level of narcissism is necessary. Sense of just grandiosity, self-importance. This go-getter attitude, winning mentality, which is kind of delusional. Yeah, right? Delusion is necessary, as we saw with this belief in God. Delusion, self-delusion is necessary. And you can't, unfortunately, fake self-delusion, because, well, then you wouldn't be deluded. That's the thing. It's like you have to believe so hard that there's not even a question of doubt in your mind. And that's something I see also that's necessary. And that's something that is associated. Well, it's associated with all humans ultimately, no matter how intelligent or not intelligent you are. But I would say it's something that we see more with lower intelligence, able to believe more absolutely in things that are obviously untrue, or just have a degree of perception that's not really in alignment with how things are. And the so-called Dunning-Kruger effect, right, is a good example of this. That people with lower intelligence, they overestimate their abilities. And people with higher intelligence, they underestimate their abilities. They have, meaning, in other words, they have self-doubt. And just more awareness, which is a consequence of being more aware, right? And being more aware in general is likely to inhibit your ability to act with such conviction and certainty that people with a lower intelligence are going to have. And which is what billionaires are going to have, right? They're going to have have the ability to take risks, and oftentimes those risks are going to be taken without the understanding that they're exactly risks, and they're going to have to be a little bit blind, perhaps, to potential consequences of their actions that might inflict other people. Because as many people know, being a sociopath is also correlated with success. Highly correlated with success. And I wouldn't say that being highly intelligent exactly precludes you, if that is the word, from being a sociopath. There are obviously sociopaths that are highly intelligent, but what I typically see with people that are more so highly intelligent, I mean like several standard deviations above the mean, they have higher levels of empathy. They're more sensitive in all regards. They think a lot about how their actions will affect other people, and that thereby prohibits them from doing a lot of things that they might otherwise do. They are a great deal, and yeah, that is going to lead to certain outcomes. So, is it possible to become rich in an ethical fashion? Well, perhaps it's possible, and there are examples of this, but I think overall, no. Even the ones that would say or believe that they're so to speak ethical in an absolute sense, it's probably not possible, because in some way or variety of ways along that chain of cause and effect that's going to lead to you becoming someone that accumulates a vast amount of money, there's going to be by necessity incurred some form of exploitation, whether it's in the way in which you treat your workers, or it's the way in which like the product itself that you sell is like manufactured, how those goods are sourced. There has to be some form of exploitation. Like it's largely inevitable. And even let's say that's not the case. That there are, so to speak, wholly ethical rich people, billionaires. They're still the exception to the general rule. And the rule is that mostly these people, they openly exploitative, and will even go so far as to celebrate that, see it as a demonstration of strength, of power, basically, that they have the capacity to do what in their language would be considered weak people. What weak people, you, we don't have the capacity to do, because we have empathy and a conscience. But in the eyes of a sociopathic entrepreneur, CEO, that's a weakness. One's humanity is a weakness. Which brings us to a broader point here, and that's that unethical behavior is rewarded, it's celebrated, not just in our culture, but in this world at large. Forget about what goes on in our society and in our human world, and just look at nature. Oftentimes, the animal that succeeds is the one that's best able to be manipulative, exploitative, stealth-like. These are all tactics that rely on subterfuge. And that's what's rewarded. That's, typically speaking, the animal, the organism that's able to prosper and pass on its genetic material to the next generation. And yeah, I mean, of course, I'm stating the obvious here. I think we all know and understand that ethics, ethics are contrived. They're contrived by human brain, and they don't actually exist. And that's why we see what we see in our society with people that are best able to rise to the top. They are going to be the most exploitative. Like, you can rise to a certain level, I guess, by being more community-minded in your actions, being more empathetic. But if you want to really, really get to the top, that's only possible by exhibiting these more sociopathic qualities. It's just simply not possible. Simply not possible. Because the fact of the matter is that someone, even if everyone else plays nicely, thinks about other people, treats others as they themselves wish to be treated, blah, blah, blah. Someone, it only just takes one person, right, to not play by the rules. And by the simple virtue of doing so, they have a huge, huge advantage. And that's why we're in the situation we're in, right? Because people have this mentality of like, I'm gonna fuck him before he fucks me. And I guess it's justified, right? It's wholly justified because there is a person that's gonna fuck you. And even though I myself don't like this, I think it's stupid fundamentally. Not just destructive and unpleasant and callous. I also think it's fucking stupid. It's dumb. It's really dumb. Because no matter how good anything in this world is, it's just as transient as anything else, right? So ultimately the situation we're in is we're just fighting over some just ephemeral shit. We're fighting over nothing. And when it comes to money, that literally is what we're doing. We fight over nothing. We fight over an idea. It doesn't even have any material reality. Of course, it can procure us things that are material, but even it's just some shit. It's just some shit. But the system that we construct is a reflection of the broader nature, the reality within which we find ourselves, the way in which it operates. Simply a symbolic representation of that. And ultimately it comes down to survival, right? It's stupid, yeah, even in nature we fight, we struggle, we engage in all of these dishonorable tactics, underhanded methods. And what's the prize at the end of it all when we stand at the top of a pile of corpses? What's the reward? We get to live, we get to pass on our genetic code, but then we're just ourselves going to be added to that pile of corpses. So my outlook on all of this is that I put more value in what I'm going to do, what my mental attitude's going to be, what my emotions are going to be like in this present moment. Because that's what that really is. I don't put much value in like sacrificing my time in the present for some more prosperous future, a prosperous future that might never actually come. So I don't really care about just nice material things. Yeah, they're cool and stuff, but ultimately whatever, if I have to sacrifice too much of my time and energy in order to attain them, then they're not worth it. If something requires me to sacrifice my peace, my contentment, right here, right now, for like an extended period of time, it's not worth it for me. just not worth it. And yeah, of course, inevitably I do have to interact with this world to some extent, but very, very much, we all do, right, ultimately, but very, very much of it we can, in fact, avoid. It just requires sacrifice, basically. We have to sacrifice a lot of these material things, and probably also like a lot of validation that we might be getting from other people as a result of having a certain standing in society. But if one's able to really truly see and understand what the state of affairs is here, then there's a good chance that caring about any of that stuff that you're having to sacrifice is just going to fall away, and then it's not even going to really seem like much of a sacrifice. Yeah, inversely, you end up feeling kind of rich, and that's it sounds trite to say, but that's a kind of value that you can't like attain with any money. That's by which I mean the mentality that the headspace, the perspective that you're able to inhabit when you're free of the desire, the need for money, and all of its associated material interests.